Distinguished Chancellor, distinguished President, and distinguished colleagues, it is a great pleasure to be here, and I'd like to thank the Academy for the opportunity to come and share some thoughts with you. My thoughts are along the lines of two themes: justice and mercy. William Shakespeare sets the prologue for my thinking. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes, the mightiest in the mightiest. I think that defines the focus of our attention this morning on the victims of the variety and the evil of modern slavery, from sexual exploitation, forced labor, and domestic servitude. As you are all aware, the investigation, prosecution, and punishment of wrongdoers is a common response to this problem. But human trafficking often leaves victims inside a country without legal documentation or relevant work permits. In many cases, victims stand outside the law and legality. The very sense of authority is what they fear most, and yet it is the primary responsibility of the state as the authority to protect the victims. Fear and insecurity may lead to an inability to cope with unusual and frightening situations. So identifying victims and ensuring their interests are protected sets expectations that are not always achievable in a legal system or in a criminal justice system. They go outside the system, and I think affect society as a whole. I think we have to think about presumptions in the legal context of this discussion. The presumption of being a victim is key to their protection and is surely on a par with the presumption of innocence that we find in criminal trials, which is a key element in the protection of the rights of the accused. Today we hear much talk about survivors. It's commonly used to define those who have gone through traumas in their lives and have come through probably trying to come to terms with those past events. But let me be clear, there are many who are not survivors, the forgotten, the people who do not have a voice, who are so timid, so fearful, so frightened of the very authority that may help them, that they resist the legal system's overtures of assistance. In the United Kingdom, we have made great strides in terms of the first Modern Slavery Act of 2015, and there are many distinguished speakers today who will talk about that act in some detail. The point being that justice systems may prosecute, deter, and detect wrongdoers, but the qualities of mercy require primary attention to be given to those victims. In the room today, we have what we might call the different families of the legal systems, common and civil. I think it's fair to say, as a common lawyer, one looks with certain envy at civil systems, where codes containing detailed criminal rules and procedures give a clarity to what the system is about. Indeed, civil justice systems often favor an inquisitorial approach, which gives a degree of preeminence to judges that could be an active factor in finding the facts. In those systems, it appears that in many examples in the world, victims are much more easily protected, or at least that's the perception one has. In the adversarial system of the common law, where there is a two-sided contest between the state and the defendant, it is very much the case that the victims, until relatively recently, have been an important but forgotten part of the whole story. There is today, I'm pleased to say, a welcome tendency for both inquisitorial and adversarial systems to speak to each other. And today's occasion is one such moment when both civil and common law systems may find degrees of commonality, dare I say, hybridized ideas, borrowings between each, which will only benefit the victims of the system. The EU has made an important development in terms of the directive in improving the rights of victims. And there is a victims' code in the United Kingdom strengthened by 2015. But we still have to take another step the step of having a victim's law expressly stating the actuality of what a victim's rights are and how they may best be protected. Clearly, it's a work in progress, but it is a work in progress which I welcome because it does suggest that victims are at last being recognised for the importance they are in the criminal justice system. Returning to the UK Modern Slavery Act, we have the first independent anti-slavery commissioner who is in the room today. His job is not easy, and after 12 months, his survival in the post is a tribute to him and his staff and the endurance of what is clearly a difficult time in turbulent circumstances. In addition, we have a number of commissioners for victims and witnesses, and we have taken steps to bring into operation guardian ad litem type arrangements for child trafficking advocates. But I do not want you to think that the matter is settled. Although the Modern Slavery Act was only passed in 2015, there is clearly still work to be done. For example, in the discussion on the Act, we had to look at the overseas domestic workers, and a report on the precise nature of their protection was published in February 2015 with details about giving overseas workers in the UK 42 days where they could attend groups, and in addition up to 30 months where they could stay in the country in order to change their employer. These are controversial and to a large extent still to be debated proposals, but they should illustrate to you that one of the features of the common law system is the flexibility and pragmatism that comes with improvement, debate and discussion, which hopefully will take us to a better place. And I think the Modern Slavery Act is a good place to begin, but it's not necessarily the place we will stop. In conclusion, let me draw together the strands of what I've been saying. It seems that victims of slavery and human trafficking require identification and recognition as well as the support of the criminal justice system. We have to admit that despite all our best endeavours, relatively few criminal prosecutions are taken, and traffickers and the trafficking problem remains an incredibly challenging problem in our societies. Responsibility for protecting victims must therefore fall to a more holistic approach involving the social, economic and cultural challenges that deal with facts rather than media hype, that deal with the realities of victimhood as well as the regulatory structures that may deal with it. Reprisals, confinement, threats of violence are ever present. The context of shame and self-blame, hopelessness and resignation are the hallmarks of the problem. They are societal problems that we as a group should work together to address. Victims' advocates must work and help within these parameters. The justice system must work effectively to protect victims, albeit often outside the criminal trial or indeed the ability to prosecute traffickers. Distinguished participants, let us not forget in our discussions today the role of the victim and the need for mercy and justice to be combined in the way in which all our efforts should come together to deal with this challenge, which I fear will get worse before it will get better. Thank you very much.